Connects, we have another fabulous storyteller. Her name is Cyd Connects, and I can confidently say that what she doesn't know about beauty is not worth knowing about. Anyway, she is the co-founder of Cyd Connects. She is a woman-led sustainability consultant, and she's here to inspire positive change. She's also a certified B leader working to raise awareness of how the B Corp framework can act as a catalyst for more sustainable businesses. Today, Aisling will be discussing the important and unheard topic of why the Earth needs diverse thinkers. So let's give her a warm welcome onto the stage, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for having me. So I'm Aisling, and it's so wonderful to be here on Gender Equality Day. Such a big deal, woohoo. And so I'm going to explain why the Earth needs diverse thinkers. So when you think of diverse thinkers, what do you think of? Do you think of this term neurodiversity? It's kind of like a new term. And so I was officially given a label, neurodivergent. It was about 5 years ago. I didn't really like the label. It kind of seems a bit trendy now, but it took me a while to process this new label. And it is trendy. You can't get very far on social media without an ADHD meme. However, in school, I had a very different label. I had, this is me in school with my little brother. He's now 6'5", but I still call him my little brother. I'm still the older one. But I was given a different diagnosis in school. I was given a dunce diagnosis. So we arrived in Ireland when I was 7, and my parents sent me to school. It was a convent. All the best schools in Ireland are run by nuns, apparently. And after a week, the teachers invited my dad in for a meeting because they thought I'd never been in school before. They thought I was completely uneducated. And my dad kind of jokes about it now, but it wasn't very funny at the time. And they didn't give me a physical dunce hat. Interestingly, dunce hats didn't become illegal in the UK until 2010. They didn't give me a physical dunce hat, but they did the equivalent. They put me in remedial classes, and I knew it wasn't a good thing. And I knew I wanted to get out of those classes as quickly as possible. And so I was well behaved, I was obedient, I wasn't smart, but I was very sneaky. And eventually I learned how to cheat my way out of those classes and basically cheat my whole way through my education. But that feeling of like being stupid or being a dunce doesn't really leave you. So once they kind of label you with that, you don't really take that invisible hat off. But my story isn't unique. Hands up if you had a good time in school. Did anyone who had a good time in school? Hands up if you had a rubbish time in school. Like a lot of people did. And as I became an entrepreneur, I started realizing that the most successful entrepreneurs I knew, who'd made a lot of money, had left school by the time they were 16. So I realized my story wasn't unique, but it's not unique probably up until this point, because in my 30s, I met this woman. So I crossed paths with her. Her name's Professor Cyd Connects. She's at Cambridge Judge University. And it's Gender Equality Day, and she set up the Women's Leadership Centre at Cambridge Judge. And she was one of those women who looks you in the eye and asks you really deep questions. Do you ever meet those people? They look you in the eye and they say things like, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? And I was working for a big tech company at the time, and she was like, are you sure you want to do that? Like, wouldn't you like to make money and do really good stuff for the world while you're doing that? And eventually I confessed to her. I was like, do you know what, Cyd? I'm just not smart enough to retrain. I've had this kind of fluke corporate career, but I'm not very smart. And she really spent time with me, and she encouraged me to look at my situation differently. And she encouraged me to speak to an expert. And so I ended up having a long day of strange, random tests, to be honest, and lots of odd questioning. And a week later, I was given a whole new set of labels. Oh, don't worry, you're dyslexic, you've ADHD. Don't worry, we were just testing you wrong the whole time. We shouldn't have segregated you from class, we shouldn't have isolated you. Our bad. Actually, do you know what? We're actually going to give you a scholarship to Cambridge Judge. There you go, you're actually really smart. And it's quite a confusing thing when you've been told the opposite for quite a long time. But Sucheta was the diversity hire at Cambridge University, because believe me, it's not very diverse. And she was very proud of the fact that she was the diversity hire. And she was changing the system from within. And so what do you think of when you think of diversity? Do you think of race? Do you think black and white? Or maybe you think of gender, man versus woman? Or maybe now you think of neurodiversity, the idea that people experience and interact with the world around them in many different ways, and there's not one right way of thinking, learning, and behaving. And we use many characteristics to define ourselves in society. We have lots of beliefs. They're often unconscious beliefs, and I love this wheel of privilege, and Amber had this wheel of privilege up at COP27 last year. So the closer you are to the center of this wheel, the more statistically likely you are to be successful in this world. So take a moment, go around the wheel, and figure out where you sit. And reflect, is there anyone you know that sits entirely in the center of this wheel of privilege? Because many of us here today will be privileged in some way, and it's important to understand your own privilege and your own power so that you can use that power as a force for good to lift the voices of those who faced more barriers. Or maybe you're looking at the wheel and you're like me, and you're definitely not in the center of the wheel. It's about understanding the majority of power and voices being heard are coming from the center. And if we want to continue to innovate and solve these major environmental issues, we need to start bringing more diversity of thought to the table. And so we know the Earth needs diverse thinkers, right? We're here at COP. We know that, like, the climate crisis is the symptom of an economic system that's exploiting people and planet. We know that capitalism has made people rich, some people very, very rich, and it's taken a lot of people out of poverty, but at huge costs, the costs of our natural ecosystem and unsustainable levels of inequality. And the core logic of capitalism is that it takes labor and nature and it commodifies them. And it makes them as cheap as possible, and it takes more than it gives back. And this system is dangerous, and we've all collectively brought into this economic system based on this belief, on a scarcity mindset that there isn't enough to go around. Our economists created a model that just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. We are obsessed. And of course, we have to treat the symptom, but the real cure is a systems change. And so Kate Raworth, she's an amazing economist. I'm sure you've all read Donut Economics. She challenged some of the thinking and beliefs that we take for granted with her book, Donut Economics. And as a female economist, she went, hold on a second. The economists that I'm learning from, they forgot to factor in the unpaid work of women into their equations. She also exposes the power of language and how the word citizen was commonplace until the 1970s. And then economists switched us from citizens to consumers. And this new language has permeated into our media, into our business, into our collective thinking. And she's created Donut Economics, a solution to the traditional model of capitalism, a social foundation, so if we look in the center, ensuring nobody is left behind on life's essentials. So what are life's essentials? Food, water, energy, and education. We also don't want to go into this orange area, this environmental ceiling, and ensure we don't overshoot the planetary boundaries. And we need to live in this safe space for humanity. So businesses need to be operating within this safe green donut, and right now we're not, right? We know we're not. But the thing is, it's totally possible. So why don't we do it? What's holding us back, right? There's so much research on why diversity is a solution. You know, I work in businesses, that we know that it's going to be the right thing to do. We know we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. Yet we still don't do it. And this is, again, the same year my little brother was born. It was also the year that Mary Robinson became the first female president of Ireland. And she's always been my guide. I love that she's all over the media today. And she went on the record at COP26 saying it was too male, too pale, too stale, because she knows we need to innovate. And last year, this image went viral. Again, notice anyone missing? The most senior officials making the most critical decisions about our planet and its people, nearly all male. How can we change thinking if we keep listening to the same voices? And then COP28, not a lot of change. 15 women in the family photo that was released today of 100. So we have all the research. We know that diversity is better for nations, better for businesses, better for the world, but we still don't do it. And why don't we do it? Because diversity leads to division, right? It's much easier to hang out with people who all agree with you. You can have a different opinion as long as the opinion is the same as mine. I'm right, you're wrong. So I did what I always do when I don't know the answer to someone. I called up one of the smartest people I know. So this is Chris Demir. He's the director of the University College London Climate Action Unit. But what I love about him is that he's also a neuroscientist. And so I asked him directly, we have all this research, but why don't we take action? And his research focuses on this. He's just done a TED talk on it. I'd highly recommend it. And he has 8 insights. And I'm going to focus on this one, the pyramid of polarization. And basically, what happens is you have a big problem at the top. So you're grappling with a problem, and you have different thinking. And as your opinions or beliefs become stronger, you start moving down the pyramid until you become further and further apart, until we're in a pyramid moment. So we go in different directions. I'm right, you're wrong, black and white thinking. And he explained to me our brains are incredible. But when we're in a pyramid moment, we start becoming our own lawyers. We start building a case against the other. We need to prove them wrong. We become one-track mind. And you can see what we do this with. We do it with race. We do it with gender. And my mentor was really clear when she set up the Women's Leadership Centre that she called it WO plus Men's Leadership Centre because she didn't want to alienate men and get into a pyramid moment. And she knew the current system really doesn't work for men either. And also, for the record, as someone who grew up in a convent, it doesn't work when it's all women at the top either. Success is about us working together. So we do this with religion. In Ireland, are you Protestant or Catholic? We're still dealing with that trauma. We do this most with politics. Republican, Democrat, Labour, Conservative, climate activist, oil company. We need to challenge our own beliefs and our own thinking, and we need to notice when we're in a pyramid moment. So, challenge your own thinking. Is our economic system broke? Is our obsession with growth a bad thing? Maybe diversity is growth. Maybe growth isn't all about money. So we always associate growth with money, and diversity and inclusion is its own growth. Because I think our obsession with growth is actually a good thing. If you look to nature, we need to grow. If you're not growing, you're dying. And growth isn't easy. It means overcoming challenges, and we are outgrowing our current system. When we do look to nature, it would teach us that there's another operating system, one that's not based on scarcity, but on abundance and generosity. And as ecosystems evolve in nature, they actually become more diverse, and their diversity creates more resources and not less in a system. So for ages, and I'm going to leave you here in a second, for ages I thought my schooling had let me down. If only I'd gone to a different school where I'd had better teachers and I hadn't spent my life cheating out of remedial classes. The conditioning in school of wearing my invisible dunce hat, it doesn't just come off when they tell you it has. So I spent ages in therapy, because even when you have a master's in sustainability, the belief doesn't change. And one day, sitting in the kind of waiting room, I got chatting to the guy beside me, and he explained to me that he'd had such a privileged upbringing. He'd attended one of the best schools in the world, and from a very young age, he'd been put in the gifted class. And he was now in therapy, distressed, because he hadn't lived up to his genius label. And then I had that aha moment. It doesn't matter if you're gifted, if you're a genius, if you're autistic, if you're dyslexic, if you're ADHD. All of our minds work differently, and we are all diverse. And that's our superpower, that we don't all think the same. And we just collectively thought up our capitalist system, and we can collectively think up a new one. So let's be aware of where we're privileged, and be aware of our barriers, like when we're in a pyramid moment, and overcome them. Because the real growth is facing our challenges and learning to work together, and seeing our challenges as growth. We just need diverse thinkers and a leaf out of Mother Nature's book. Thank you.